Hi, I'm Maryann Lawhon, executive producer of The Voice of John. The Voice of John is a documentary that speaks to the issue of abortion. Since producing that documentary, John's voice has increased in the depth and the breadth of his message. He has spoken about end-of-life issues. He speaks today about those challenging issues of Down syndrome, genetic anomalies. I'm here today with my guests, Betsy and Ralph Leon, and in many ways, I'm going to show you this blanket. This is the blanket that held their baby, who was born alive, and it kept him warm for the day he lived. And Betsy and Ralph are going to share their story, and the message and the voice of their baby John will echo with John. And we will hope that women will be encouraged to face the decisions of a complicated pregnancy with grace and wisdom. Betsy, Ralph, thank you so much for being here, for being voice to your little boy. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
When I heard that his name was John Paul Raphael, I just knew that it was the voice of John that would echo with the little boy's voice who I had baptized John almost 40 years ago now. Thank you for being a part of A Matter of Life. Betsy, I'm going to start by asking you how it felt when you were pregnant, excited, I guess, to be pregnant, and then to hear the diagnosis. Talk to me about that time in your life.
Sure. Well, the story of our baby, John Paul Raphael, was really God's story from the very beginning. We're an older couple. This is a second marriage for both of us. We have 10 beautiful children between us, John Paul Raphael being the 10th. So being at this stage of our life, we were very open to having children. We're Catholic, and we knew that was a possibility, but we also knew it wasn't something we were trying for. So we were delighted and surprised to find out in May of 2017 that I was pregnant. And it was exciting, and we were overwhelmed, and I was a little scared. You know, I was 45 at the time. And the process began of researching and being excited. I would Google 45 and pregnant on my phone and see what you get. And we knew that being of an advanced maternal age, that having complications in our pregnancy was very possible.
Right.
Very possible, something we had to consider from the very beginning. But we loved this little life within us immediately. It was so beautiful and exciting to welcome a child that was ours together. And even though it was my 6th baby, it didn't change. It didn't change anything about how excited we were to have him. The pregnancy proceeded fairly normally, but given, I should say normally at first, but given my age, we knew we wanted to have the genetic testing. I've always been pro-life, so it wasn't a question of what we would do, but Ralph is a family physician, and we thought it would help us to be prepared for any scenario, any conditions that our baby might have, so we would have an opportunity to educate ourselves and be ready.
Right, and that's, you know, that's such a good point, because sometimes that genetic testing done on advanced maternal age, as you said, you look like a kid, but it's the reassurance that everything is okay. And I think many women have that testing done in hopes that they will just receive that reassurance, as most women do, that everything is okay. Unfortunately for you.
No, that was not the case.
That was not the case.
I was about 14 weeks along when we had the NIPT and the first trimester screening done. The results took about a week. And it was hard to kind of wait along for those. The first phone call we got was on a Friday, and I was at home, and the genetic counselor from the specialist's office let us know that the first trimester screening results had come back, and that we had a 1 in 5 chance of our baby having either trisomy 18 or trisomy 13. I had no idea what that was.
Right. Yeah.
I knew that Down syndrome was trisomy 21.
Right.
We would have been thrilled to have a Down syndrome baby. I think they are the most beautiful, pure, innocent, just angels on earth. And
thank you. I
I
feel
really
the same way.
would have felt that that would have been an incredible blessing for our family. But honestly, when I read the brochure at the testing for the genetic testing, I didn't even look at the 18 and 13 because they're rare and they were scary.
Right.
So when we got the first result, it was less accurate than the second, and the counselor was apologetic for even calling, but she didn't want to sit on the results. She said, this is very inconclusive. These results have a high risk of false positives, but I want to tell you. So we had the weekend. We were scared. I was disappointed. We cried. We started looking into what trisomy 18 and 13 even were. I didn't even know what they were.
Right, right.
But we did a lot of research and just kind of sat with it. And on Tuesday of the next week, I got the second phone call. And I was sitting in my car alone during a pouring down rainstorm, and she said, she started by saying, your NIPT results rule out Down syndrome and trisomy 13. But we had an 87.5% positive predictive value that our baby had trisomy 18.
Trisomy 18.
18.
Okay.
And that he was a boy. Because the tests are very conclusive with determining gender. So it was a moment where I sat in the car and I watched the rain, and a million things just swirled in my head over and over at once. She did offer the option at the end of the phone call for termination, and I said, don't mention it again, please. She said, absolutely, we will respect your wishes, and it never came up again for the rest of our pregnancy, for which we were very, very grateful. But it was still a lot. It was a lot to process.
As you researched trisomy 18, what did you find out about John, about your little baby?
Yes, well, John Paul Raphael.
John Paul Raphael.
Yes,
I love the
he's got
name.
a big, long name for a little guy. Trisomy 18, the first thing that you'll hear when you research that is that it's incompatible with life.
Right.
I prefer to say it's a life-limiting diagnosis, because incompatible with life would suggest he was not alive at all, and he was already alive within me at 14, now 15 weeks pregnant. So it is a life-limiting diagnosis. There are very few trisomy 18 children that will grow into teens. I think the oldest child is maybe in her 20s. It's a diagnosis that is harder for boys for some reason. The boys tend to have a worse outcome.
Right.
Many of these children don't make it to be born alive. Many of them die naturally in the womb from conditions associated with their genetic makeup. If they're born alive, I think we researched that maybe 10% make it to their first birthday. So the statistics were overwhelming and devastating. They really were. And we spent a good period of those first few days really mourning, grieving, wailing, lamenting, just kind of being in shock.
Yeah. Betsy, so often I would think of you through the pregnancy, and you just want to hold on to it forever. Like, I'll be pregnant with you till you're 17, you know?
Right.
Like you just, it's so hard to imagine, to let go of that life that's growing under your heart. And I know how much the both of you were willing to welcome this baby into your heart, into your family, into your very large family.
Yes.
But,
yes.
and how accepting you were.
His condition, we were very accepting of his condition. The heartbreak was, will he stay with us? It was never a question of, do we accept this condition? It was, this is our child, and we are so in love with him already. And all we desperately want is to meet him and hold him for as long as we get.
Right.
So that was the question. The question was, will we make it? Will we get this thing that we're longing for?
Yes. Yeah.
It was
Betsy has such a beautiful story to tell us, and I'm just totally enraptured in it. We're going to take time out for a break, but we'll return with A Matter of Life. Welcome back to A Matter of Life. I'm here with Betsy and Ralph Leon, and Betsy has just described what it was like to be so excited about your pregnancy, her 10th pregnancy, and then to find out that her baby had a genetic anomaly that was incompatible with life. I loved how she described it wasn't incompatible with life. My baby was alive within me. But she goes on to talk about that pregnancy. Betsy, then there's the moment that that baby was born alive. And I know that was a prayer answered for you. I know you shared that one of your prayers was, God, just let him hear my voice.
Absolutely.
To be able to say, I love you, John Paul Raphael. Talk to us a little bit about the birth and the experience that you had that day, the both of you.
Well, the journey getting to that point was truly struggling to sit in the uncertainty. So much fear, so much unknown.
Yes.
And we had faith the whole time, and we clung to a passage from Proverbs, which was, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Rely not on your own understanding. So this was really our mantra to get us through the pregnancy, because it was so hard to sit not knowing. And there was so much fear that just was around us. And the circumstances around his actual delivery turned out to be very complicated and traumatic. He was delivered by emergency C-section after my water broke unexpectedly on January 4th. I had a condition called polyhydramnios, so the volume of water as it left my body pulled the placenta away, and so my placenta was beginning to erupt. And John Paul Raphael, unbeknownst to us, was slowly suffocating in my womb.
Right.
Once we got to the hospital, they got him out very fast by emergency C-section, and he was born at 10:33 a.m. on January 4th. He was not immediately alive to anyone watching. We have no clinical way of knowing if that was true or not, but he wasn't moving. He was blue. He wasn't crying. His eyes were closed. And they placed him on our chest, and it was just the fulfillment of everything we had been waiting for 35 weeks and 6 days. That he was here, and I was holding him, and we were together, and he was in my arms. They tried to take him quickly to assess, and Ralph said no, and he got the holy water that we had brought, and together we each baptized him. And only after that moment did he take a breath.
Wow.
That we could see.
Yeah.
I mean, his heart may have been beating before that, but it was truly a miracle that after we baptized him, he began to breathe.
I must say that when I saw that part of your video, that look on your face was such joy.
Yes.
I could feel your joy when you held that little boy. It was just so beautiful.
He was so small, and we didn't know what to expect for so long, and he was just right there. He was right there, and we had loved him so much, and now we got to love him face to face and see him and touch him and hold him and kiss him, and the fear evaporated. I had no thought at that point of how long will he live, how long will he stay. It didn't matter.
You were in the
We were
moment
just
with
right
your
there,
baby.
and this, having him with us was everything we had wanted
Yes.
for so long, and that we had really fought for spiritually, emotionally, physically, medically. It was a long journey, but it was completely worth it.
Yeah.
We had 1,690 minutes to love him on earth.
1,690 minutes.
Yes. We knew that we had surrendered the numbering of his days to God, that at no point in his pregnancy, in me, that we were going to interfere with that. And we didn't know what we would get. We were hoping for weeks and months. We were making plans to bring him home,
Yeah.
but it turned out to be 28 hours and 10 minutes. And it was pure joy, total unconditional love the whole time.
The video of the children being with their brother, of the both of you, just touched my heart in such a profound way. And two, hearing that his name was John Paul Raphael, I just knew it would echo to the voice of John. And I have to say that you allowed God, the creator of John Paul Raphael, to be the author of his life from the womb. to his very early tomb, but God authored his life, and his life is with God. How are you doing now?
It's been a long journey. Preparing for the death of your child is something you can't really prepare for, and you don't know what to expect. And the pain is great, but we have said over and over we would do it again every second just to have, I mean, those minutes, we put a lifetime of love into 1,690 minutes, and we felt his love. And we feel his presence with us. We really do. And it's not easy. We suffer and we struggle and we stumble through it, but it was totally worth it to know that we accepted and surrendered to the plan that his life was. His life had a plan that was far bigger than either of us. It was a gift that he was given to us. It was a gift that he arrived alive. It was a gift that he stayed as long as he did, and he was surrounded by love.
He was.
Surrounded by love.
I loved looking at the video of your family with him.
And in the moments that he died, surrounded, I mean, 8 of us just there holding him. We were singing to him.
Yeah.
And I just know that the Lord was present so deeply with us.
Yeah.
And that is a consolation. There is still a great deal of pain, but the joy of his life is worth it.
John Paul Raphael will be with us forever. He is a part of your heart. He's a part of who you are today. I thank you all for staying with us and listening to John Paul Raphael's message as spoken through his mother. And we're going to take time now for a break, and we will be back with the conclusion of A Matter of Life. Thank you. Welcome back to It's a Matter of Life. I'm here with Betsy and Ralph Leon as they describe the life of their little boy, John Paul Raphael. And I'm just so moved by their story, and I'm sure you will be as well. My next question, first of all, I want to say it is so beautiful to see the both of you having faced such a challenge and sitting there shoulder to shoulder, so united in your marriage. I'm sure in many ways, while you went through this challenge and faced it together, your marriage is stronger for it.
Absolutely.
Your love, your relationship. And so I just want to say I commend both of you so much. And you know, when I speak of the life within the womb and the value it has, first of all, I think of Christ. And so many people think that Christ came into the world on Christmas Day, and we celebrate his birthday. But I don't think it's any coincidence that in reality, he came into the world with the words, "Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you, and blessed is the fruit of your womb." He came into the world as an unborn child. The scripture of Luke tells us that when Mary went to visit Elizabeth, her name, when Mary went to visit Elizabeth, the child within her womb, John, he leaped, and she knew she was in the presence of God. And so, again, the voice of John just echoes, resounds over and again. My next question is to Ralph, as a physician and a dad. What a position to be in. Can you tell us, just give us some insight, what it was like, the doctor in you, knowing the reality, the dad in you who wants to make everything right?
Well, I think my biggest goal at all times was to be reassuring for Betsy in the face of a very difficult diagnosis, and statistics are just that, but
Right.
87.5% is a very hard statistic to overcome. So with every step throughout the pregnancy, and as it later on seemed pretty clear that John Paul Raphael had trisomy 18, I was really called to try and be a steady anchor for her of not losing faith and not losing hope. And I am an optimist by nature, so I kept clinging to that 12.5%. But as several of our priests and counselors have told us, the miracles we get aren't always the miracles that we ask for.
Yes.
It was very scary to see John Paul Raphael immediately after birth not breathing, and I was very concerned that he would not be alive for us to let him know how much we love him. So when we baptized him and he took that breath, that was such a relief. And then, as Betsy said, it seemed like all fear was gone, and the time we had, we treasured completely. In my residency training, my obstetrics experience was very traumatic. I mean, I think a lot of people don't realize that giving birth to a baby is not what the movies and the TVs always show, and there's often a lot of tragedy.
Yes.
So I'm well aware of that, and I think that helped me to stay calm and present in the moment. And those 28 hours and 10 minutes were such a gift from God, and for us to be able to share them with our family together right to the very end
Yes.
was something I'll always treasure.
Yeah.
And John Paul Raphael, he worked a miracle on his siblings because his 9 siblings, they had a range of, they couldn't wait to meet him to, I hate this baby already. They had a lot of complexity, and when he was there in his flesh and with his love, they all melted. It was a miracle of when you see the joy on their faces. I mean, he just had this incredible spirit that flowed out of him, and he did nothing. You know, his message to us, the gift I hear from his life, is to let yourself be loved, because he did nothing, and we loved him so much.
Yes.
And he poured that love on us just by being there, just by his very creation. Was an incredible miracle and a gift of love.
When I looked at that little boy's eyes, and they were open, wide open, a couple times in some of your videos that you shared with the family, and I thank you for that, Betsy. But yes, I saw this flow of love between brothers and sisters and mom and dad. I saw joy.
Yes, total joy.
I saw joy, and I think you expressed so well. And we just have a short time to recap, but I want you to look at that camera as if you're speaking to a woman who's facing this challenge. What would you say to help them make that decision?
This is going to be the hardest thing that you will ever do. But your baby loves you, and I know that you love that baby. And his life has a purpose for you, and his life has a purpose for the world, even if it's not everything that you thought you wanted or everything that you expected. His life is worth it, and you can do this hard thing. You can let yourself be loved through this baby because he needs you.
Thank you so much. And that is exactly what I saw through Betsy, Ralph, and the children, is that one day,
28 hours and 10 minutes.
28 hours and 10 minutes are the 28 hours and 10 minutes that she wouldn't give up for the world. She embraced the pain, she faced the pain in order to embrace her baby. Thank you both so
Thank you
much
so
for
much.
being a part of A Matter of Life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. I hope you enjoyed this segment of A Matter of Life. Since filming the documentary, A Voice of John, John's voice has continued to resound in so many ways that were unexpected by me. He speaks not only of abortion, but the voice of John speaks about the dignity of all human life, from the womb to the tomb. It resonated with my father, who, through his dying, showed us how to give dignity, how to stand by our elderly at the end of life. At a time when euthanasia legislation is being introduced by so many states, It is an opportunity for us to recognize how we are to care for our elderly and respect the precious gifts that we can learn from the end of life. It has resounded by speaking to the voice of those with Down syndrome in utero, to help mothers to face that tremendous challenge with courage and grace, and to decide to give life to their children. We hope that the voice of John will echo in the chambers of our legislative buildings. We hope that it will speak to women who face crisis pregnancies. And above all, we ask that it's a reflection of the voice of Christ among us. In order for programming like this to continue, we ask you to partner with us financially. Your tax-deductible dollar can be sent to Pennsylvanians for Human Life at the address shown on the screen. You can also request to have a speaker who will speak to the issues of abortion, infanticide, euthanasia, suicide, and assisted suicide. We thank you for your support and for listening to The Voice of John and A Matter of Life.